Lord. Welcome back to Once Upon a Crime. This is podcast number 6.
Yes.
Today's discussion is a vibe. We'll be talking a lot about female anatomy and female menstrual cycles. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about women in the CJ system, specifically in prisons. Yeah.
So for this podcast specifically, we're going to focus on actually females in the prison systems because we've always hear about men in their prison systems.
Because women are underrepresented in the prison systems.
Facts.
Yeah, facts.
Really big facts. And what we don't see a lot is just all the hardships of just the anatomy of being a female
Yes.
in prison. Because I feel like female in prisons were never meant to be.
No, I think you're right. Like, systemically, you look, and there's not many parts of a prison that are meant for women, you know? There's a lot of hard physical labor.
Yeah.
And less... Okay, maybe that was me feeding into, like, a stereotype about women.
Yeah.
Obviously, women can, you know...
Commit murder?
Yes, women can commit murder, but women can participate in, like, hard labor activities. It's just that, like, those were meant for men. Like, everything about prisons was meant for men.
Yes.
And there's less women in those prisons in, like, administrative roles as well.
And I feel like, personally, I just feel like no one suspects the female to do it.
It's true.
Until now we're in the 21st century and now they're like, oh, yeah, the female did it.
Yeah.
She did it.
It's an interesting thing where, like, women can seemingly get away with things more than men just because of their, like, discrimination.
Yeah.
Like, they're seen as weak, so they're overlooked.
Yeah. But you know what? So...
we're going to specifically talk about, like, the health aspect of women in there, specifically with menstrual cycles. We read an article that prompted Iolani to bring up a TikTok that she saw.
So if you guys go on TikTok, you know, scrolling and the prison TikTok comes up out of the blue. I don't know how, but it comes out of the blue. It actually shows how prisons make a tampon. Like, probably don't know, female hygiene products are very scarce in the jail system, and like you have to pay for it. It's not free. So like, if you have a job and you only get paid like maybe like 75 cents per day, they're selling about like a 24 count pad box for about
it said $234 in the article.
$234 in the article, and I'm just like, bruh. You do realize that they have to buy their own shampoo, their own conditioner, their own things to be like clean. And I'm just like, how is that doable?
And the article brought up like human rights.
Yes.
Like, you can't stop a woman from menstruating unless you put her on birth control, which is a violation of her rights in itself.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, she consents to it.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some way for these women to address that situation, like, doably and cheaply.
Yeah.
In prison systems.
But they should be free because we can't help our anatomy. That's the issue. Yes, we are different from males, but think of it, like we have the menstrual cycle for a reason. It's for us to regulate our periods, regulate
hormones.
our hormones, and plus it also shows, and it's an indicator that we're not pregnant.
Yeah. And an indicator that you're healthy. Like if you're malnourished or if you're underweight, well, that's one and the same. Anyways, you can lose your period.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Hence why people go on birth control to regulate their hormones. And I don't know, I just find this like so fascinating that like people using TikTok is using like that platform to show like this is what females have to go through. And also, we all know about all the jail TV shows like Beyond Scared Straight.
Yeah.
There's other ones I don't recall.
I never watched these growing up, but I do remember watching clips when I was older.
But like as you see, like they're always all male.
Yeah.
You never see like the female aspect of it. It's always
little boys in male prisons.
Yeah. And we never see like females going into it because there's about how many females are behind?
Oh, let's see. Bars? So I have the releases, but it is 231,000 women locked up in the United States right now.
And that's like only a fraction, like a small percentage of that compared to the male side.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but if we're not treating females correctly, like where's the human right in that? Because isn't that like a human right violation right there?
I believe so. I mean, if you can't take care of your menstrual cycle, what are you even going to do?
Yeah.
But here's what they are doing. They're using mattress stuffing, ripped bed sheets, socks, toilet paper, and soiled day-old tampons.
Yeah.
This is just toxic shock syndrome waiting to happen.
And like what's so interesting about it is that like I was reading the article. It's not uncommon to see just a pad slip out of your pants and go down your leg. Yeah,
really?
It's not uncommon. It's very common. They have to reuse their pads.
Oh, so it loses the stickiness.
Yeah. Yeah, and like they said that it's not uncommon. Like there's a lot of correctional officers who like make fun of them because they bleed through their jumpsuits. Yeah. And like they can't help it. Like,
that's so sad. Honestly.
It is sad. I'm like speaking like for ourselves because we're female. Like it's the hygiene.
Yeah, it's hygiene and like decency.
Yeah, and they have like the right to make fun of others, particularly female, because we have our periods every month.
Yeah,
and but what they are trying to do, they are trying to make pads and tampons free, but it's very hard because I guess none or few of the jails got the memo.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, how did you not get the memo?
It has to be such an obvious problem there as well. Like you said, the pads are slipping out of their uniforms.
Yeah.
Like you can see the problem on the floor or like on their body.
Yeah.
And they're just not addressing it. But there are other things that they're also not addressing in these prisons as well, which is like the actual reasons that the women come into the prisons, which like substance use disorders, mental illness, poverty, trauma, and domestic violence and abuse. So if you're neglected in this system, you're not really going to respect it, right? So you'll see the recidivism rates increase just because, like, obviously you don't respect it. And you wouldn't want to go back there, but it's like, well, I don't care about the system anyways.
Yeah. And I feel like it's very hard for people to get reintroduced to society again because they're just like, oh, you're telling me that I can get these hygiene products and I don't have to ration myself.
It's like a culture shock once you come out. Like you remember, man, I'm a person.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have like that right taken away just because they're in jail. They should have those because, again, we can't change our anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
We have the XX chromosomes, not the XY chromosomes.
Yeah.
And it gets me so mad because I'm just like, you're basically treating us wrong.
Mhm.
And plus, isn't it like harmful to your own body if you have to reuse things?
Yes. It can lead to toxic shock syndrome, which can also lead to death. Like if you're that sick with toxic shock syndrome.
And I remember reading like I don't want to say a case, but a news article like a while back where a 16-year-old, she wasn't in jail, but like she had a tampon in, and like that sent her to death.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what about those who aren't? Like, what about those who are in jail? Like, what if they go into septic shock? Like, who's at fault for that?
Yeah, and like who's watching her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's really saddening for sure.
It is saddening. Like, why if you're a female CO, how would that make her feel in her shoes? Because we all know that being a correctional officer it's like a man's job, and I hate that because like it's the 21st century. You can do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not taking care of females. They're only looking after majority of the time males, and
it's very
like the
restrictive.
It's like the lopside of like society where like outside the CJ system, women are fighting for their rights, but who knew that they'll be fighting more while they're in jail?
Yeah.
Like, make it make sense. Like, why would you?
And they can't even fight that hard because then they're resisting the authority of the people.
That can mean that they can lose their probation opportunity, or they can lose. What else could they lose? More time in jail, or more sentencing. I don't know. It's like there's like no win-win. They have to just keep doing what they're doing, and that can cause like major health issues in the future.
Or they have no wages after. Yeah.
But I still think sanitary pads and tampons should be free in jail
100%.
Because, homie, we shouldn't even be paying for.
Yeah. Like if you're forced to go to prison, you shouldn't be forced again to the indignity of using your own bedding or spending all of your money on sanitary products.
Or like just using toilet paper. But we all know, females, we all know, that doesn't work that much. It works for a little bit. It works for a certain amount of time.
And you know they're using one ply.
Yeah.
Half a ply.
They're as thin as panty liners.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, bro, does it mean that it's like only like this big, like this big? Like,
yeah. Part that we wanted to talk about is reentry into society and how there needs to be specific programs for women in reentry because they have different needs than men.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to poverty, that is like one of the highest indicators for recidivism. And there are a lot of studies that show that finding employment, finding housing, and having an education will help with reentry into society. So there are a couple of reentry programs that I found. One is a New Way of Life Reentry Project, Ladies of Hope Ministry, and Center for Women in Transition. These are all across America, and I just think they're very interesting and very necessary.
And you know what's the most shocking part about it is that we never hear about these.
Yeah.
We never hear about these because we're always waiting on males getting better when it should be the whole shebang. The whole everybody.
We should see both sides.
Yeah.
But again, I kind of understand it a little bit because men are more prevalent in the prison system.
Mm-hmm.
But women are still an important part, and they need to be addressed more because men's problems are kind of more obvious.
Yeah.
And women's kind of fade under the radar.
Yeah. I feel like females don't go to drastic measures.
Yeah.
It's more like petty crime, petty theft, maybe multiple misdemeanors here and there, or reckless driving, or ignorance of the law. But they still should have that right of getting things that they need, like hygiene products, because they're female.
Yeah. Or a reentry program that addresses their specific like trauma or mental illness. That was another thing.
Let's face it, females don't talk about mental illness as well.
Yeah.
Like we don't see what's going on. Like we just try and push through the past and be like, okay, today's a bad day, maybe we'll get better.
But I need to support my family. I need to do this.
There's other things, and I'm just like, because we're nurturers. Females are nurturers. So they think of others besides themselves. And I think that's why, because of the pandemic, I feel like we as females became more included into the mental health. And that's because of, depression, anxiety, all increased during the pandemic. And maybe that's how females in prisons feel too, because they couldn't get visitors probably.
Yeah, I never really thought about that during the pandemic. It must have been miserable.
Yeah, because you were just in the cell with maybe a cellmate.
Yeah, could you even have like yard time or time to like interact with others?
To be honest, I don't know. But
if that's a topic for another day.
That's a topic for another day. We didn't go that far, but it's also a thing to bring up too. Like, what was life for not males in particular, but females in jail? Because we saw there was outbreaks in multiple jails about COVID-19 because of the close proximities. But female point of view, what happened to them? Like it kind of gets pushed under the rug.
Yeah, they're just not the focus in these conversations. But they're the focus of this conversation.
So hopefully there'll be more of a change. But for now, slow and steady wins the race, I guess.
For now, we're just hoping that menstrual products become free in prison systems and that these reentry programs help women reduce recidivism and increase their chances in a society that will hopefully support them.
That's Once Upon a Crime.
This has been Iolani Mangoba and Bethany Racette. Thanks to Dr. Reed once again.